Maybe this has happened to you. You're scrolling through the news on your social media feed. The headlines are relentless: political gridlock, acts of violence, climate disasters, economic insecurity, terrorist attacks. It's like the world is shouting at you, demanding your attention, but offering no hope. Then you glance at the comment section, hoping for some perspective, maybe even a little compassion. Instead, you find a battlefield, people arguing, name-calling, tearing each other down over differences that shouldn't make us enemies. Social media and the 24-hour breaking news cycle thrive on keeping us on edge, amplifying outrage to fuel clicks and engagement. It's easy to get caught up in the constant us versus them mindset if we let it. And then there are those trolls, those faceless antagonists who stir the pot with nasty comments, not to foster dialogue, but rather to provoke reactions, to get a rise out of us. Their attacks stick with us, leaving us frustrated, drained, and often tempted to lash out. It's a toxic cycle, isn't it? Now, I must admit that someone did get on my Facebook and say something they shouldn't have. And I let them have it. I told them where to go and how fast to get there. And I may have put a couple of expletives in there as well. But just when I was about to hit send, I hit delete. I'm a preacher, I can't send that stuff, folks. But it sure felt good writing it. If you've experienced any of this, just pause for a moment. Feeling the weight of it all. It's overwhelming, isn't it? The pure volume of negativity and division that exists today can feel suffocating. Then perhaps a question starts to form in your mind, and it happens quietly at first, but grows louder and louder as you sit with it. Is there enough good left in our world? Is there enough good in the world? I must admit, I've been asking myself this question for a while. And it's not just about the noise or the headlines on social media, it's personal. I've felt the discouragement creeping in, wondering if any of our efforts to bring hope, goodness, or compassion to our world and to our community even matters anymore. You can feel at times that civility and our culture are in decline. And there's very little good left in the world, and there's very little left we can do about it. But what if good hasn't all but disappeared? What if it's just harder to see through all the chaos and through all the noise? But perhaps goodness, it's not always loud or visible. We know that. It rarely makes the headlines or trends on our feeds. Instead, it shows up quietly in small, consistent acts of courage, kindness, and decency. When people lend a hand or speak up for justice or extend compassion, even when it's inconvenient or difficult. So what if we hit pause? What if instead of letting the weight of the world make us cynical, we choose to focus on the moments that inspire us, that remind us of the best of ourselves and others? These moments don't usually grab headlines or go viral, but they sustain us nonetheless, reminding us that compassion is still alive and well. Last month, Tulsa police officer Cody Riley pulled over 3 people not to issue citations, but to surprise them with gifts, food, and toys as a part of the Tulsa Police Foundation's Random Acts of Kindness Week. I did not know there was a Random Acts of Kindness Week. Also, through the Angel Tree program, over 14,000 Oklahoma children with incarcerated parents received gifts and messages of love last Christmas. Tammy Franklin, once a recipient herself, now helps lead the organization, offering hope to families in need. We don't hear much about these impactful and inspiring stories, do we? Now, closer to home, did you know that for months now, a small, modest house at the very corner of our parking lot has been transforming into a labor of love? Volunteers like John Anderson and Dennis Grody in their retirement painted walls and windows, while Dennis's wife, Carrie, and other volunteers unpacked donated sheets and set up beds to create a sanctuary for a family fleeing the chaos and the noise in Afghanistan. Every paint stroke, screw tightened, and furniture and household item donated has become an act of compassion. Soon this house will become a home, offering rest and renewal to a family whose lives will forever be changed. Now, these moments point to something deeper, something enduring that will sustain us in hard times. These aren't just random acts of kindness, they're glimpses of grace. Of grace. And you heard Dr. Nicole define grace earlier, but what exactly is it? Grace is indeed that quiet, unnoticed force transforming our lives. It is in every act of compassion, every choice to forgive, every effort to make the world better despite the noise and chaos. And these acts are grace in action, shaping our world for the better. Grace is a deep expression of kindness, freely given and unexpected. It doesn't wait for someone to be perfect or worthy. Grace forgives. Think of a time when someone forgave you or offered understanding without hesitation. Grace appears in those moments of human connection, like a parent embracing a struggling child or a friend offering support after a mistake. And it's not about ignoring wrongs, but about fostering growth and reconciliation. Grace changes how we see ourselves and others. It breaks down judgment, reminding us that we're all more than our worst moments. It inspires humility and gratitude for the kindness we received, and it encourages us to extend that same kindness to others. Remember the story I shared last week about Nelson Mandela, who invited his abusive jailer, to share a meal with him. That moment was both mercy and grace in action. And sometimes mercy and grace overlap. Mercy chooses to withhold judgment or punishment for someone who might deserve it, while grace goes further. It offers kindness, forgiveness, or a second chance that's unearned. Mercy can become grace when forgiveness not only spares someone consequences, but also gives them the space to heal. This is the power of grace. It goes beyond fairness or merit and calls us to something deeper. So when I say grace, I don't want it to be a cliche that we just say and rolls off of our tongue. I want to encourage you to feel it deep in your gut. Grace, deep inside. It needs to be real to us, folks, because it reveals our shared humanity and our capacity to create something better together. Grace comes early, often unexpected, meeting us in our brokenness and offering love and hope before we even realize we need it. 3 months before he passed away, the governor granted my father a compassionate release. He had been serving life, a life sentence, and was now dying of cancer. For him, the release was an act of mercy. But for his wife, my mother, and his children, it was pure grace. Those 3 months gave us something we hadn't had in years. Time. Time for him to say the things he needed to say. And time for us to connect in ways I never thought possible. I needed that time with my father to see him not just as the man he was in the past, but as someone seeking forgiveness, peace, and connection in his final days. That experience taught me that grace doesn't just heal relationships. It reshapes how we see each other and ourselves. Grace, my friends, is transformative. But I realized that living into grace, whether receiving it or offering it, is not always easy. The world we live in often pulls us in the opposite direction, enticing us with the satisfaction of judgment and the allure of seeing others get what they deserve. I've been noticing a phenomenon on social media. There seems to be an abundance of TikTok and YouTube videos of people getting what they deserve. Someone acts mean, ungrateful, deceitful, or entitled, and then something happens to them. They slip and fall. They get fired or they get kicked out of a venue. They call the cops on the neighbor, and then they themselves get arrested. People seem to love watching those viral videos, which would explain their popularity. Now, you've seen them, right? You haven't seen the Karen getting her just due? Andrew, is that you? I'm going to send you a link. Like all those links you keep sending me. I got him good. But since Andrew don't watch him, I spend hours on it. Hours, folks. Yes. So the clips of someone cutting the line, then getting their due, or a driver speeding past everybody only to get pulled over by the cop. People cheer, laugh, and comment, karma. There's this strange satisfaction in seeing justice served instantly. At first, I have to admit, I got caught up in it myself. Yes, 5 hours I did. Feels good when we see wrongs being righted and when people get a taste of their own medicine. But then I started to notice something deeper. Beneath the cheering and the laughing, there's a harshness to it. A desire to see people punished, sometime in ways beyond what their actions deserve. And this isn't just about social media. This mindset of justice over grace seeps into our workplaces, our relationships, and even in how we treat ourselves. We see it in how we handle conflict with our loved ones, how we judge colleagues for mistakes, or how harshly we criticize ourselves for not measuring up. Grace challenges us to respond differently in all of these areas, offering understanding instead of judgment. So I've been reflecting some. I've been reflecting on how it must feel for someone who's named Karen to now have her name as a pejorative. I've been reflecting some. How much of my own heart is wrapped up in this need for others to get what's coming to them? What does it say about me when I find joy in someone else's downfall, even if they seemingly deserve it? And then the bigger question hit me. What if I got what I deserved? I mean, let's be honest. We've all had moments when we've been the one who cut someone off, said the wrong thing, or acted selfishly. What if in those moments, instead of receiving mercy, someone gleefully celebrated my mistake being exposed or punished? It's a bit uncomfortable to think about, isn't it? Oh, but grace. Maybe you lied to get out of trouble and were met with forgiveness instead of condemnation. Grace. Or you hurt someone deeply only to have them choose understanding over anger. Grace. Maybe you neglected a major responsibility and instead of being shamed, someone quietly stepped in to help. Grace. Or your colleague is ill and you have to write and deliver a sermon at the last moment. These moments reveal how radical grace truly is. It doesn't just excuse or overlook. It offers unearned kindness and a chance to be better even when we least deserve it. Choosing grace, my friends, is a gift we give to ourselves. It isn't transactional. It doesn't wait for an apology or justification. Grace sees that people aren't perfect and accepts that the one who hurt us might never say, "I'm sorry," or even realize what they did. It doesn't excuse hurt, but invites us to choose love over anger and peace over resentment. Being a source of grace for others has the power to soften hearts, to rebuild trust, and to transform both the relationship and the people within it. Grace, my friends, isn't about what's deserved. It's about what isn't. So now when I see those TikTok videos, I've been pausing to ask myself, what would grace look like here? It's not flashy, it's not viral worthy, but it's what changes hearts, including my own. We've all had moments we'd never want to broadcast to the world. Grace reminds us of our shared humanity, encouraging us to respond with understanding rather than judgment. If we've experienced grace early, how can we not extend it to others? When we talk about grace, we're not just talking about what we receive, we're also talking about what we offer. Receiving grace reminds us that we are more than our worst moments. But however, offering grace is what transforms us and the world around us. Picture a world where reconciliation replaces retaliation, where neighbors choose understanding over suspicion, and leaders choose collaboration over competition. What would it look like if we, as a congregation, became a harbor of grace, inspiring others? Now, our volunteer pastoral care program, like Care Team, Friendly Souls, and Helping Souls, make a real difference by providing meals and companionship during times of need to our members. Bringing a meal to someone in our community, like what Elaine Hammer, the head of Helping Souls, and her volunteers do, is such a simple yet loving gesture. And when we're the ones in need, it's truly comforting to know that our community will show up for us, that this community will show up for us. And if you'd like to be a part of this circle of care, whether preparing a meal now and then or spending time with an elderly member, I'd love to add your name to the list. When we offer grace as a community, we create spaces for healing. We create spaces for understanding and for love to flourish. And together we become a living example of what grace can do. So it's not theoretical. We're embodying it. When we choose to live with grace, we don't just notice the good, we create it. So this week, I challenge you to notice when grace comes to you, when it shows up in your life, whether as a kind word or a second chance or an unexpected favor. And when you can, choose to pass that grace on. Extend forgiveness to someone who has hurt or disappointed you. Or offer understanding in a moment of conflict by pausing and asking yourself, what would grace look like here? Show kindness through small acts, paying for someone's coffee, leaving a thoughtful note, or reaching out to a friend in need. Be gentle with yourself, letting go of self-criticism and acknowledging your efforts. Choose not to retaliate when faced with frustration, and instead let it go. Consider volunteering your time, like preparing a meal or checking in on someone who feels isolated. Each of these small actions reflect grace in motion, transforming not just others, but also your own heart. Let's just not live as people who have received grace, but as those who offer it freely, helping to create a world where grace is never in short supply. So in 2025, may grace come early in your life and among those you love. May it be relentless and may it be truly amazing.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. I did my best, it wasn't much. I couldn't feel, so I tried to touch. I told the truth, I didn't come to fool you. And even though it all went wrong, we stand before the Lord of song with nothing on our tongue but